Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our City Council meeting. We've got a couple of quick things to do before we get started with our regular meeting. And we've got a very special proclamation. Would you want me to read it first, or would you like to kind of tell everybody what's going on?
Well, why don't you read it first?
Okay. All right. Our proclamation reads as follows. Drake University was founded in Des Moines, Iowa in 1881. And Drake University Athletics is recognized as Des Moines' hometown team. And the Drake University Bulldogs compete in NCAA Division I level competition across 18 sports, including basketball. And the Drake University women's and men's basketball teams will wear Des Moines-themed uniforms for the home games on Friday, January 31st and Saturday, February 1st, honoring our city. Now, on behalf of the citizens of the City of Des Moines, our City Council, we hereby proclaim the weekend of January 31 and to February 1st, 2020 as the weekend of the Drake University Bulldogs, and encourage everyone in town to join in this observance and recognizing Des Moines' hometown team. Let's give them a great big round of applause.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, City Council members, for this honor. We greatly appreciate it. We certainly think of ourselves as Des Moines' hometown team because we are proud to be a part of this place. We are proud members of the Drake neighborhood and proud citizens in Des Moines. I want to thank the City Council, Mr. Mayor, Scott Sanders, your staff. I see many familiar faces here, the chief. We get such great cooperation and partnership with the city and all of those who work for it. As you know, we've got a lot of projects underway, and those all involve cooperation and partnership with the city. And we're thrilled to be here. We're thrilled to receive that kind of support, and we're excited about what's to come. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and again, thank you to the City Council members.
We're going to take a couple pictures. Let's get the whole council up here. Chief, come on. You're dressed in blue. You're good.
We got Griff here.
All right, now, everybody, I think we ought to put Griff up on the table. What do you guys think? Griff's a big boy, so hang on, everybody, a minute. I want you to know everybody wonders why we want to serve on city Shirley. Is Shirley here? Shirley, come on up. I've got sort of an extensive thing to read. You guys want to speak first, and then we'll go through the proclamation? Okay. All right. We have another very important proclamation that I think that all Des Moines ought to be aware of and think about. Our proclamation reads as follows: the United States was founded upon the principle that all people are created with the unalienable right to freedom, and added the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, making slavery illegal. And human trafficking in the United States most often takes the form of sexual exploitation, forced labor, involuntary servitude, and debt bondage, which denies human dignity and freedom and fuels organized crime within our own community. And whereas increased community education on how to identify victims of human trafficking, along with increased knowledge of local resources and services for those affected, can help restore freedom and dignity to identified survivors, as well as to help diminish the number of future victims. And whereas every business, organization, faith community, family, and individual can make a difference by choosing products that are not made by forced labor, by working to protect young people from sexual exploitation, and by becoming more aware of the problem and problem solutions. And whereas the City of Des Moines recognizes the Iowa Network Against Human Trafficking and slavery's dedication to providing community outreach and education, legislative advocacy, training, promotion of services to the survivors of human trafficking, and collaboration with law enforcement. Now therefore, I, the Mayor of the City of Des Moines, on behalf of our City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of January 2020 as Human Trafficking Prevention and Awareness Month, and encourage everyone to become more informed on this growing problem, to be vigilant and report suspicious activity, and to work towards solutions to end human trafficking in all of its forms. And if you see something that does not look right, take action and call local law enforcement or the National Human Trafficking Hotline. That is, for those of you taking notes, 1-888-373-7888. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming and listening about what's going on in human trafficking. It's a terrible problem. It's occurring here in Iowa, probably here in the city. We thank Dana Wingert for his help in curbing that with the arrest that they made just recently. It's a big problem. There's many ways that you can get involved. Our program is currently offering hotel training for all staff, because 75% of trafficking does occur in the hotel. So far, we've actually trained over 100 hotels in the metro area. So these are two of our big trainers, and delighted to have them here. I'd like to thank the mayor and the council and Chief Wingert for your support.
Thank you. Keep up the work. We'll get a picture. I'll be in the back.
Okay, so it looks like you're back to it. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
All right, we're going to start right in with our council meeting. Quickly, before we start, we're going to have a special message from our own council member, Joe Gatto. Joe, do you want to stand at this time? Or all right, so everybody that would participate with us, we'd ask you to stand at this time.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. I thank you for my colleagues and just pray that we make sensible decisions for our constituents and our city. Bless our public safety, bless all of our staff, and especially bless the families of the 9 victims in California of the helicopter crash as they're suffering right now. Just be with their families as we know they're hurting. In your name we pray, amen.
All right, let's call this meeting to order, and I'll ask the clerk to please take roll.
County,
Here.
Boysen,
Here.
Mandelbaum,
Here.
Gatto,
Here.
Westergaard,
Here.
Boss,
Here.
Gray.
Here.
Your Honor, we have a quorum.
All right, item 2 is approving the agenda as presented and/or as amended. Anybody, I think we have,
I'll move approval. I think there were some items that added.
all right. We do have a correction, item 34 is ordinance change from the last reading, a regular agenda item, 35-44, 35I was added in its request from Councilmember Mandelbaum regarding gun violence prevention. Those are the 2 changes. With that,
Connie,
we could take,
I move it.
all right? Ask,
Voice?
yeah.
Oh, you're going to do it voice? Okay.
Now, we'll go ahead and just, everybody vote.
All right.
7 yes, motion carries.
All right, item 3 is approving the consent agenda tonight. That's 3 through 34. Item 4I, Councilmember Gray wants to speak, and Councilmember Westergaard registers a no. Item 5, I vote no. Item 15A, Mandelbaum wishes to speak. Item 18, Mandelbaum wishes to speak. And item 29, Mandelbaum wishes to speak. Are there any other items? These are items that are taken as one vote unless either a member of the council, such as the items that I just announced, are pulled off for further clarification or discussion. We'd ask if anybody in the audience has any other items they would like to speak on this evening.
I see none, Mr. Mayor. I'll move item 3.
All right, item 3 has been moved.
Seven yes, motion carries.
All right. Takes us to item 15A.
No, Bill wanted to speak. Bill,
4I.
Oh, I'm sorry, 4I. Excuse me. 4 is approving the alcoholic beverage license applications of the following, and I is the Get and Go store number 29. Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we all got an email earlier today from a gentleman by the name of Brent Millis. He is the Beaverdale Crime Watch block captain for the area, even though this is probably one block outside of true Beaverdale boundaries. The issue that's happening there, which is also happening at locations at 2900 block of Douglas, Franklin and Merle Hay Road, and 30th and Hickman. And I think the business model that Get and Go uses is not conducive to be in a safe neighborhood. Usually, the places are dim, one clerk, very little parking, and fairly easy, it appears, especially with the crime statistics that Brent had put together, to have a holdup. The one I'm most familiar with is 49th and Urbandale. This one, we met with, I don't think we've ever had the opportunity to meet with corporate, but they sent their office or their store manager to a meeting with the neighborhood group, Chris Coleman and I, and they were going to do a lot of things. They're going to put up more security cameras. They're going to put more lighting up. They're going to put a panic button up. They're going to clean the area around so that people could see what's going on. To date, I think we've probably got 2 items done. There is better lighting, and they've cleaned a little bit of the area up. But we're still stuck with just 1 clerk, and it still is a target for people that want to get cash quick. What troubles me and what troubles the neighborhood is the fact that these people, once they rob the place, they have a clear route to run to the south, jump the fence, race down through about 3 backyards to a church parking lot where conveniently somebody's ready to pick them up, and away they go. I'm worried that one of these times, somebody is going to get hurt in our neighborhoods just by living close to the get-and-goes. So what I would like to do, I'd like to continue 4I, and I would like to see if we could get together with the neighborhood groups, because the 3 that I've listed here are Lower Beaver, Merle Hay, and Beaverdale. Discuss these issues and get resolution that we can live with. We don't need to have promises. We don't need to have open-ended timeframes. This is something that is what we need to do for the safety of our neighbors. And so I'd like to do that, and if we could get somebody from legal with us, don't mean to put you on the spot, Larry, but I think we need to put some teeth into it. If we're going to grant them a liquor license, they got to work and play well in our community, and right now, that's not happening. So that's what I want to do. I want to continue 4I until we get resolution and commitment from the corporation that they're going to change their ways.
Is that their policy, just to have 1 at all the stores? Because I have 3 in right around. Part of it's at
I
Josh
was going to say
Ford.
that.
Yeah, you went
one
down
above it
Southeast
has an
14th on here, too.
infraction
Policy is 1.
Well, oh, yeah, we have 4, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have 1 on the corner of Creston and Indianola, where their headquarters is. They just are now finishing completion at South Union and Watrous, which is a bigger store. It'll be lit very nice. I'm just wondering, the 1 staff member is difficult. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the challenging part. I would agree.
Yeah, and you know, they did the same thing that 30th and Hickman, and it's right across the street from Monroe School, so it's kind of an area that we want to make sure that we don't have any issues with. And I don't think we're getting through to them. They aren't understanding the urgency that we need to go with this. 1 clerk cannot run the place. What if you have to go to the restroom? You know, I mean, they're not thinking this thing through very well. I think we need to sit them down and tell them what our neighborhood expectations are, what the expectations for the city council members are, because if we're going to grant this license, we got to have something that makes sure that we're not making targets right in the middle of our neighborhoods.
And so Larry, I'd look to you. Is there a good neighbor agreement of some sort, or do we do anything like that with commercial properties in the middle? Because they're mostly all in the middle of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
We have had those with some real problem properties. I'm not sure what the real problems are here, but
Well,
I
they're all
would,
the
I would
ones
assume
being
that,
robbed.
yeah, but
Yeah.
at least to have a continuous but not indefinitely, but to address some of these issues, I think
Okay.
that would be fine.
And I think
Could we then, as part of his motion, ask that, let's say, by the next meeting, they either send us a letter on how they're going to correct these issues, or at least come down here and give us, kind of a commitment to do it? I don't know that we have the authority to indefinitely push it off, but
No,
I think that we ought to get some answers and at least see if they can come report
exactly.
to us.
Yeah, I'd recommend continue to the next meeting, and in the meantime, get some information on the
Very good.
property.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should reconsider because
The other one before.
we had one before. If I can go back and reconsider
That's the one that had a violation.
the agenda, the consent agenda, H is on there. If we can reconsider that and pull H off there, Mr. Mayor, is that appropriate?
Let's ask, council, do we want to reconsider H? And I think we'd have to ask that, but we ought to
Have we
vote
had
on
a-
this one first.
Have we had a vote yet?
Yeah, we
That's-
took the vote on it
We did
Oh,
vote
the
on
registered-
approving
okay.
the consent.
Oh, that's true,
And H
yes.
was in there. And so
Yeah, you
I-
can have,
I wanted
anyone on the prevailing side can make a
Yes.
motion to reconsider.
So I would,
Yeah.
I
But
would
we've
make.
got a motion here, why don't we
Oh, gotcha.
finish this one?
Okay.
And then my motion is for a continuance and to get with their corporation staff, actually, I'd like to get the head of the corporation and work out what we need to see happen in our community.
And maybe he could say, relate this to this store and your other locations, that they're properly located, and then we wouldn't have to bring that other one back.
Or we would,
I mean, we were approving this one, though, Mr. Mayor. We already
They
approved.
can, they can keep operating.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
So it's proving both of those?
Well, we
Just one.
approved to continue yours.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Now, if you want to, I mean, we could bring the other one back.
Why don't we just, so we're consistent with all of them, why don't we just move to reconsider the consent agenda? If I can make
All right,
that
all in
motion.
favor of reconsidering 4H, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All
I
right,
think it's a
yeah,
good
it
idea,
passes.
Joe.
Joe, your motion would be to just
I would
follow
move
in
to
line.
continue 4H until our next available council meeting, that we can
Yes.
have contact with the owner, if that's possible. And then we'll approve the rest of the consent agenda at that, now,
Come out of the woodwork.
As it was.
as it was.
We've still
Well, I
got
think
the
we
other
only
stuff.
reconsidered one
Yeah.
item, right?
Yep,
We didn't
Okay.
reconsider the whole consent.
Yeah, if we can do that, I thought we had to
we just
reconsider.
reconsidered 4H.
Okay, perfect. Then I'll move to continue 4H.
All right?
Thank
Everybody
you.
vote on that one?
7 yes, motion carried.
Okay, now, that takes us to 15A. 15A is setting date of hearing on a request from ND Drake Multifamily LLC, Michael Nelson, officer, to amend the existing Plan DSM, creating our tomorrow plan, future land use designation, and rezone property at 2530 University Avenue and 1157, 1159, and 1161 26th Street from MX1 mixed use and N5 neighborhood to MX2 mixed use to allow for a 4-story mixed-use building with 136 household units and 6,000 square feet of ground floor retail office use. That hearing will be February 10th of 20. A, under that is the communication from the Planning and Zoning Commission on vacation of the north-south alley right-of-way. Josh?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure on 15A, the church next door to that alley that we're looking at vacating, I want to make sure, and my understanding is they're in discussion with Nelson and things are going smoothly in terms of reserving right-of-way for them, but they've got, I think, 3 or 4 different things that they need to make sure are addressed, including, I think they need a few inches of the alley conveyed to the church. They need easement for pedestrian and vehicle access to existing doors that are off of that alley. They need easement for maintenance of the west side of the church building and easement for the existing grease traps on the east side of the alley. And so as part of this process, I just want to make sure that staff is considering that and that things can continue to go smoothly with the parties, but I wanted to make sure that was a piece of this record. So with that, I'll just make a motion accordingly to, that those items be considered by staff going forward.
But voting on setting the date of hearing.
Yes, move 15A forward. Otherwise, just want to make sure that that is part of the record for 15A.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, it lights up. Hold on. There you go.
7 yes, motion carries.
Okay, takes us to item 18. Item 18 is on a proposed amendments to the approved zoning ordinance in Chapter 134 of the City Code relating to lodging, short-term commercial rental uses, non-conforming uses, separation distance requirements for eating and drinking places, bar uses in a MX2 mixed use, and regarding proposed amendments to the approved zoning map relating to portions of legacy PUD districts that are erroneously shown as flood districts. That hearing will be February 10th of 20. Josh?
Yeah, and I think we might have some folks in the audience who want to speak to this item, so I'd welcome them up first, and then I'll share remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members. My name's Diane Graham. I live at 635 46th Street. I'm here with some other neighborhood folks. We want to ask for a slight deferral on the public hearing regarding the short-term commercial rental uses portion of the zoning matter. We're currently in the process of reaching out to several Des Moines neighborhood associations, and that's been a slow process in part because they're volunteers and in part because of the looming Iowa caucuses, which is absorbing lots of people's time. We want to make sure the associations have had time to review the ordinance and speak up with any concerns. The ones we have heard from so far had not seen the ordinances prior to this. And the neighborhoods do have a strong vested interest in what comes of this because we analyzed all the February current Airbnb listings out there past February 3rd, matched them up with the neighborhood association boundaries, and we can say that 45% of the neighborhoods currently have standalone, whole house Airbnb rentals in them. So we really feel like they should have a chance to review the ordinance thoroughly, raise any concerns they have, and do that before the public hearing date. So we're asking if you could put off that portion till the 24th of February. And there might be, I don't know.
So do you know in our ordinance that if you're having problems with any Airbnb, that it goes back to the Board of Adjustment within 30 days and they'll lose their, it'll be revoked and it won't be an Airbnb anymore?
Well, I understand that's the process. What I'm
Okay.
concerned about right now is that there's provisions in the proposal that govern multi-use buildings and density, and there are none of those right now in the residential neighborhoods. There's no distance separation. There's no density separation by neighborhood. All the neighborhoods, you can open, if you get your permit, you can have a whole house Airbnb anywhere, and it really changes the dynamic of the neighborhoods. So we want to make sure that these associations understand what it does and doesn't do. It does some very good things, but we've been struck by the fact that we're showing it to them for the first time. So,
But you know they're doing this without any ordinance right now.
oh yeah, oh no,
Okay.
I know, but,
And we have nothing to take it away from them right now.
and we're
Well,
only asking for a couple of
Actually,
weeks.
there is an ordinance in place now. We passed the ordinance in December, so they're doing this in violation of the ordinance that we currently have set up. So, slight difference.
Yeah, but we told them we were coming back and we were redoing it and they've all been involved in it. I mean, I don't mind holding off, that's fine. I just wanted you to be aware that there is something to be able to revoke there. If they're not being good neighbors, then you can definitely, it won't be an Airbnb anymore. And that's what you're looking for, correct?
Well, there might be some places where it would be great to have an Airbnb, but there might be some others where it's not so great. So we just, I'm not familiar if any of the permits have been turned down so far. Maybe there are people here from the city that can say that there's been action taken since December. As far as I know, they're still all operating right now.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's complained about
Well, I
any,
don't
so we
think
can
that's
take it.
true. I think I could step aside and
Okay,
have somebody else talk.
If
so.
I can, we'll have 3 readings of this, won't we?
yeah.
So that should give you plenty of time.
Well, I know for a fact that one of the neighborhood associations that asked us to come talk to them is having their membership meeting on the 10th in the evening. And I said, well, I can't be 2 places at once, but, so that's why we were hoping we could just have a couple more weeks.
Okay, as I think has been pointed out, and you probably understand this, but we're just setting a date of hearing. This is not passing anything changed tonight.
And we didn't.
It's going to be a reading at the next meeting.
And we just didn't want to show up any later in the process and say, hey, we want to delay. We thought the earlier we thought
No, appreciate
that we
that.
brought it up would be better.
Have you been going to the meetings that they've been having, the
I
open
was sick
meetings?
for the one a couple weeks ago, and I went to the plan and zoning meeting last week.
But I mean, well before, I mean, we've been talking about this for a year. Have you been going to any of those meetings?
Me personally, no, I have not. I wasn't aware of it, so.
Okay.
All right, next speaker.
David Schlarman, 1503 Center Street. I'm a member of the Sherman Hill Association Board. Thanks for opening this up for discussion briefly this evening. I think what we're asking is that the council be aware that neighborhood leaders do have a lot of concerns about sort of doing away with the amendments that were recently approved back in December. Our biggest concern is about doing away with the owner occupancy requirement. And I've been speaking, I was at a meeting a couple weeks ago with the city, voiced my concerns. I saw planning and zoning's recommendation. They don't seem to be taking at least our neighborhood seriously. And it's not that we're against Airbnbs, we just feel this process needs to slow down a little bit. If the regulations were to go through as they're currently proposed, we feel somewhat like it would be the Wild West out there. You could have an Airbnb, there's really no limit how many we could have in Sherman Hill, for example. My entire block could be an Airbnb. That's not why I live downtown. I live downtown to be in a neighborhood. I think there's some level that's appropriate, but I just don't think all the ramifications have been considered. And so, again, whether we defer this meeting or not, I just want to make the council aware, let's make sure we get neighborhood feedback, especially from your neighborhood associations, because I think to date you've heard from a lot of the Airbnb proprietors that obviously the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and you've decided to revisit this, but let's make sure you've heard from all the neighborhoods as well.
David, thank you.
I have 3 Airbnbs, all within 2.5 blocks of me. 2 of them are whole house. One of them has no owner living there. It's a problem. They're not neighborhoods anymore. They're hotel spots right within your neighborhood. I think it's very important that there are things addressed. I think the neighborhood associations and the neighbors are not, they're just not aware of all the things that can go wrong. I am, because those things have gone wrong. And the problem is with an Airbnb, they go wrong again and again and again because you have new renters, new renters, new renters. There's no neighbors. There's just renters. There's businesses. There's hotels in my neighborhood. I have complained. I have called different parts of the city. I've spoken to Sue Ann Donovan. And let me tell you, it's not easy. And there's not a lot of response. Sue Ann has been great at writing back, but they have to build up a certain amount of violations and proof of violations before they will even start the process. So we've been having problems since September, and I've been complaining. I've been calling. The police do not always show up to ticket the illegal parking. 11 hours and 3 calls. No ticket. So how does the city get a record of the problems at these Airbnbs? That's one of the things you have to consider. You can say complain, but if the complaints are not being taken seriously, if the complaints are not being logged in, if there's no place for the complaints to be gathered, Public Works has got its complaints from me, and the police has its complaints from me, and Sue Ann has my complaints. They all need to be gathered together, and right now there's nothing about that. There's no density issue addressed. There's no proximity addressed. Parking is awful. I have an Airbnb that can allow 10 people. Well, that can mean 10 vehicles. They don't know when the garbage is picked up. They don't know when the snowplows come. And those people go, and another 10 come, and it's the same thing again. So this is what can happen, and this is what is happening. Renters come and ring the wrong doorbell at 3 a.m. That's not fun. That's not a neighborhood. That's living next to a business. So please, 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 let our neighborhood associations really take a good look at this and hear about what's good in this and what is still needing to be done. We would really, really like you to delay this so that we can educate some of our neighborhood associations. Thank you.
Could you give us your name and address?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Carly Hamilton, 678 45th Street.
What is the Airbnb that you're having? Which ones are you having the most problem? What's the address of those? If you
Well,
don't mind me
the
asking.
one of them is 4420 Harwood Drive, and the other one is on 46th. Diane, do you know? Yeah, it's in, she's 665, and it's the house, it's one north, right? Yeah, one north of her, which also has a basement. Now, I don't know that that she rents out, I don't know if this person's done any radon testing.
665, well, I'm sorry, I didn't, 665 35th Street, is that what the address is for this?
No, no.
Didn't know exactly.
It's one house north of 66.
I'm at 635, and it's the house next to me, so it's the next one.
635 what?
46.
46.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Josh?
So I pulled this because I've got concerns about what's going to be coming to us in a few weeks and wanted to at least lay some of that out in advance. I'd prefer to give the neighbors a little more time, and I'd prefer that we take our time and actually get the balance right. So the biggest concern to me was we had a framework where we weren't going to allow anything that wasn't owner-occupied. And we've gone to the exact opposite, where we allow anything that isn't owner-occupied. And this, to me, is an issue where I think we want to work hard to get the balance right, because if we don't, we're going to be dealing with this on a somewhat regular basis as we discover the problems with not getting the balance right. And that includes, everything from potential, I think we should be considering density and providing additional guidance to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. It's a burden, we're placing a burden on the neighbors to go in front of Zoning Board and Adjustment, and there's no guarantee that there's recourse to those neighbors when you go through a Zoning Board of Adjustment process. We should be, at a minimum, providing additional guidance. Things like density. What happens if all of a sudden there are 4 or 5 houses on a block? What does that do to the character of that block, and what kind of impacts does that have? And a concern that I have that still is not addressed, I've been concerned about what this potentially does from an impact to our housing stock and what are otherwise potentially affordable homes to own. I see this potentially playing out similar to, a Gary Oates situation where one person can acquire dozens and dozens of properties, and we have very little recourse in terms of what that's doing across our community. So I'd still be interested, and it was one of those things that we talked about previously. I'd like to see an ownership limit in terms of the number of short-term rentals that any one owner could have. And I believe the concern was, how do you draft language about the ownership structures? I've looked in the rules at the state level, because they've dealt with this issue on a myriad of areas where they've defined the various partnerships and LLCs and percentage of ownership that any one person could have. So I think there's an example of language that we could adopt that wouldn't be unique to us, that would address that ownership stake piece. And I think that's something that we should look at as part of this process as well. So those are the pieces that I would like to see addressed. I think my motion would be to delay consideration of, and I think we have some opportunity to discuss this further. I think it's already on, I was told right before this, already on our February 5th strategy session to discuss. minimally, I think we should delay it till we have time to discuss it as a council again. So at least 2 weeks. And then I know staff would like to see the other pieces of this be set for hearing, so I'm happy separating out the short-term rental to delay and to move forward with the other pieces.
I would like to, I'm probably not going to vote for a delay. We've been working on this for 2 years. We've had multiple meetings. We've had council chambers full of people who have come to talk about this. Staff has put so much time into it. At some point, we have to move on. When we decided to delay this, we told everybody, let's pull it off of the original ordinance, and we would get something passed after the first of the year. So I think we have a duty to get something done. We can always make an amendment. This is a working document, and it's a living document that can be changed. Am I correct, Scott? That's what you've always told me, that we can always make it. Right now, we have people that are running these short-term rentals. We don't know if they're renting them for 30 days or for 2 days. Putting this in place, the sooner we can get the hearing set, and it'll have 3 readings, so everybody's going to have at least another 30 days to do whatever they need to do. But by putting this in place, we now have some teeth in this ordinance, because if you have an Airbnb, you have to get a license through Board of Adjustment. If there's any issue, it will come back through zoning and they can shut them down. So if anything, it's going to help the neighborhoods. Right now, they're out there doing it, and this is going to put some teeth in it.
Well, actually, I think we put teeth in it back in December. This actually weakens the framework that we already have on Airbnb. So
I don't think we have anything on Airbnb.
We do have things on Airbnb. We included Airbnb. It was limited to owner-occupied. We agreed that we would revisit expanding it beyond
But we have
owner-occupied.
we have no way to know whether somebody's doing an Airbnb or if they're just doing a rental, because everybody has to have a rental certificate. And limiting ownership, you know, you talked about a person who has 100 and probably 200 rentals, and we can't limit that. People can buy rentals, and they rent them, and they're not well taken care of. This gives me the assurances that I'm going to have better homes in my neighborhood, because that Airbnb person has to vet their renters, which some landlords don't do now. And we have if they want to rent their homes, they have to make sure that the lawn is taken care of. People have to want to come and rent their places. So we're going to end up with better properties than what maybe we could end up with. And we have many, many very, very good landlords in this city. I mean, many people, you drive down and you would not even know that.
Not landlords, Airbnb owners.
But,
Landlords is the problem that we have on some.
well, on some, but not every landlord is a
No,
bad
I know
landlord.
you meant Airbnb.
I mean,
You meant Airbnb owners.
I mean, Airbnb, the same thing. We have good Airbnb owners. They want to rent out their houses. So I just don't want to keep delaying it, asking. I don't know what else city staff could do. There was a meeting, a few weeks ago. I mean, I don't know how much, what do we want them to do? We keep delaying it, and at some point, I get their concerns, and they still have the opportunity to go visit with whoever they want to. We still have 3 readings, so you can show up at 3 different meetings and voice your concern and ask for changes.
Okay, anybody else?
I think in this case, I don't have a problem going for 2 weeks longer, only because I think a lot of the people that came to speak, as the speakers brought up, were the people that own the Airbnb. They have been actively coming after, and I support doing some Airbnbs, but I think the neighborhoods have brought up, when they brought up some of the concerns they brought up, when I started reading the email, there are things that maybe a lot of people don't even know they have Airbnb next to them.
Which is good.
Which is good, or whatever. So some people are having more problems than maybe what we're aware of, that I realize we have 3 readings, but sometime, for 2 more weeks, if we're going to have it in a work session where we're talking about it more, I don't think it's a big issue to go 2 more weeks. Because there might be some things that we might need to hear from some of the neighborhoods, or now that there's more of them, there might be more issues coming up that we need to be more aware of.
So this vote, we're just setting the date of hearing, correct? I mean, we're not, correct me if I'm wrong. Are we, so, and we're having our meeting on the 5th, that we're all going to talk about it. And, if we come up with something that isn't part of this, we can delay the hearing, right? We don't have to have the hearing on the 10th. We can pull it, we can keep it open and have it the 24th. I mean, and that would, if we can't come into some agreement, if they can't talk to some of the neighbors. I personally have talked to all my neighborhood associations. I have a lot of homes in the neighborhoods that need fixed up. It's not, I don't represent a lot of the folks in Sherman Hills where your value of your homes is much, much more than some of the values on the southeast side. And for me, it's a benefit because I'm not counting on renters to fix up these homes. I'm counting on someone that owns this home, that isn't living there all the time, but it has to be in good showing order and has to look nice for him to be able to make money. So they're going to fix up a home that would be blighted otherwise, which I have a lot of those, and they've done that. So my situation's a little bit different for my constituents that I represent. And I think we have some teeth in it to where if you have parking problems and you have police being called there, and I know that we have documented any police calls. I know the chief has that documented anywhere. I'm not sure what Public Works has to do, whether they're leaving garbage or the garbage isn't getting picked up. Those are reasons that the Board of Adjustment will take away the Airbnb, and that's what we've always all talked about. You can't limit, and I just think it's unlawful to limit how many I can own. I don't think that that's lawful. I think we're going to find ourselves putting a whole lot of Larrys to work if we decide that we're going to do that, that you can only own 5 of them. Okay, well, I can only have 5 businesses. Well, I don't think that, in this country, you can't do that.
You can't do it, Joe, and the state legislature said no.
Okay,
at the
we've got
last-
that Bill
at
wants
the
to
last session.
speak here.
So you can't.
So, I mean, I get we want more time, but we've had a lot of time. And
Okay, Bill
I
wants to
got
speak
you,
now,
I'm sorry.
thank you.
I had to live through the crux of all Airbnbs, and I was getting lots of calls. If you want to hear a horror story, this is what I heard time and time again. It was illegal to begin with. The owner lived in Omaha. The parking was overrunning the neighborhood. They had a bonfire in the backyard. They were urinating on everybody's lawn. They're parking in the other people's parking lot and having such an overflow, they went across the street to Ashby Park and parked over there and trashed Ashby Park. Believe me, that's a poster child of an Airbnb that's gone bad. I'm very sensitive to it. Also, we just had a nice presentation from Drake University. We've got a lot of great things going there. What would happen if that whole area turned out to be Airbnb? That's my concern, because what happens to the Drake Neighborhood Association? They change their name to the Airbnb Neighborhood Association. That's not anything I'm looking forward to. Things that bring the community together are a way to talk to your neighbor, to see what's going on, your neighbor watching out for you, and I'm not interested in getting a wake-up call at 3 o'clock in the morning by somebody pushing my doorbell to tell me that, do you know how to get in this place? I mean, all these things are exactly what you take back to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, but I will say this, no matter how many times we got called on that poster child, they were already late, the police were, everything was under control by the time they got there. That's frustrating. I think if we put the teeth in ahead of time, then we won't have to rely on community reporting to get things done. So I mean, I'm game with going forward, but you're going to hear a big story from me on Wednesday. I want to make sure that we put some teeth in this. Can we modify it down the road? Yes, we can. I think that if, once you've proven yourself that you can be part of the community, can be an asset to the community and the neighborhoods, then I'm willing to listen. Maybe I'll loosen it up. But I'm not going to give you the keys to the city on the first go-around when I've already had bad expectations and bad experiences from illegal ones that go on and through our city. So I agree we can go forward, but you're going to hear a different tune on Wednesday, the 5th. Just my thoughts.
Carl, any thoughts?
Is this required that everyone needs to weigh in?
No, but since everybody else has, I figured.
Keep it to yourself, Carl. It's safer.
Well, I'll keep it short. I've seen some alternative additions or modifications regarding density in neighborhoods, and if those could be worked into the plans going forward. But I think that 3 readings will give us a chance to do that. I would suggest that we go ahead and schedule our public hearing in early February.
Okay.
Mayor, can I get one clarification? Legal, if we approve something on the first reading and then have about 4 or 5 changes, do the changes get incorporated, or do we have to keep following the readings on through and nothing gets changed?
There are some changes you can make during the reading process. If the ordinance becomes something totally different than the original first reading, what you look at is just starting over again. And this is city initiated, so you might just see where we are. If what we have is workable with some base amendments, you can go on the reading process. But if it's just a total rewrite of the ordinance, then we'll probably recommend you just
Scrap it and start over.
set another hearing.
All right.
Start, yeah.
I'm good.
So we've made modifications to the noise ordinance, and I think we're going to do the 3rd reading this evening, so.
Yep.
Yeah, correct.
Exactly right.
And wouldn't this be similar to what we did in October? I mean, in October, when we passed the original ordinance, we said, we know that we're already going to put some amendments in place. Let's go ahead and proceed, and that's where we are today. And if there are material changes, we could always come back with more amendments, even if this was passed. At least this would be a start. It would put some teeth into some.
Yeah, sure. Once you enact an ordinance, we're always free to make future amendments to that. Yeah.
We want to get it right.
Okay. We've got a,
We've got a motion. I would say I'd still prefer, all I'm asking is a 2-week delay to allow neighbors to have a little bit more of a voice in this process. I understand if folks don't want to do that, and my motion gets voted down, and we'll work through the process, but I'd still like to have the 2-week delay. It's a little bit fair to folks who weren't necessarily aware of the process going on beforehand, and we'll just have at it. If the rest of the folks want to just do this.
Josh, if it was that bad, why wouldn't they know about the process?
that's right, we got a motion on the
Right.
table, okay?
Just to clarify, the motion would be to set hearing on the 24th of February as opposed to the 10th?
Yeah, separate it out. Yes, for the short-term rental, a 2-week
Okay.
delay. For everything else,
So,
10th.
okay, so, well, we'd have to, yeah, okay, the parts of the ordinance which do not include the short-term rental have a hearing on the 10th, and then the
Correct.
remainder on the 24th.
That is the motion.
Five yes, 2 no. Motion carries.
Kiddo.
We did get
It's a little bit past 5 o'clock,
Holy cow.
so we're going to quickly switch from the consent agenda over to our hearings.
No problem.
And note that the time is 5:24. And our first hearing item is item 38. Open public hearing and on the vacation of the excess East Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway right-of-way adjoining 1422 Scott Avenue for assemblage with city-owned property for future redevelopment. A is the first consideration of the ordinance above. Is there anybody here to speak to this item?
I see none, Mr. Mayor. I will move 38A, and waive the second and third reading.
Okay?
Seven yes, motion carries.
Item 39 is on the vacation of an alley right-of-way north of and adjoining 100 East 2nd Street. A is the first consideration. Open this hearing and ask if there's anybody in the audience to speak to this. Again, alley right-of-way, 100 East 2nd Street.
I see none, Mr. Mayor. I'll move 39A, and waive the second and third reading.
Seven yes, motion carries.
Item 40, on the conveyance of excess city-owned property between 2412, 2500, 2504, 2508, and 2512 George Flagg Parkway to the Des Moines Waterworks. Is there anybody here to speak to this item? Seeing none?
Seeing none, I'll move item 40.
Item 40 has been moved.
Seven yes, motion carries.
Item 41 is on a conveyance of excess city property east of and adjoining 601 Kenyon Avenue to Michaela D. and Caleb Sloan for assemblage with their residential parcel for $100. Again, item 41. Anyone here? 601 Kenyon.
I see none, Mr. Mayor. I'll move item 41.
Item 41 has been moved.
Seven yes, motion carries.
Item 42, on the conveyance of vacated alley right-of-way north of and adjoining 2714 Scott Avenue to William and Elizabeth Turnquist for assemblage with their residential parcel, $25. Anybody here to speak to this one? Seeing none?
I'll move item 42.
Seven yes, motion carries.
Item 43. Item 43 are items regarding 3200 and 3212 Southwest 9th Street. A is to amend the existing Plan DSM, creating our tomorrow plan future land use designation from low-density residential in a neighborhood node to community mixed use in a neighborhood node. B is a hearing to rezone C1 neighborhood retail commercial and R160 one-family low-density residential to PUD planned unit development, and on a request from Casey's Marketing Company, Marnie Beck is the officer, for approval of PUD conceptual plan to allow for redevelopment of existing 21,664 square foot general food sales store with a 4,817-foot gas station convenience store to include sales of wine and beer and a pump island canopy with 14 fueling stations. C is the first consideration in the ordinance above. Again, this is items regarding 3200 and 3212 Southwest 9th for a 14 fueling station convenience store. Anyone here to speak to this item?
Seeing none, Mr. Mayor, I'll move 43A, B, C, and then I'll move to waive the second and third reading. I do want to add one, just make one comment. in terms of going forward. I think for corridors in the future, the way our new zoning code works is the storefront will need to be adjacent to the street going forward. I know there was some discussion of that here. We'll go forward with this particular project, but I want to make sure that we stick to the way things are planned in the future and that we get, particularly on those corridors where we're making an effort to make a walkable corridor, create some vibrancy on the corridor, that piece of locating businesses and storefronts right on the street is going to be important going forward. And so here, this was done before the new zoning code, and the folks on the Southwest 9th Street corridor are supportive of this, but I want to make sure that we adhere to the policy that we've set going forward. So just wanted to make that note.
And Josh, I appreciate that. And Scott and I have had conversation, and I've had conversation with staff, and I appreciate moving all the storefronts up there. But in particular with fuel stations, that typically doesn't work real well. And I don't understand how that could possibly be, but I appreciate you moving this forward, but maybe we just need to revisit that policy in general, and I've asked to do that before this. And we've kind of kept putting it on the back burner, but we did this on East 15th in Grand, and we made it very walkable. This is going to be very walkable also, where we've made it so you can. We did it on South Union and where the new Get and Go is going that I was just talking about. So maybe we need to revisit that policy at a workshop or something, that we can talk a little bit about it, because to me, that one just isn't very good common sense. And I could see some of the other storefront, but in particular, a fueling type gas station, that doesn't make much sense. So I'll leave it at that.
Seven yes, motion carries.
Item 44, these are items regarding Gray Station. A is a hearing on the exchange of real property with HRC NFS 1 LLC for property located south of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway between Southwest 11th Street and Southwest 16th Street. B is approving completion acceptance of the following private construction contract improvements. One is a bridge over the Raccoon River between the City of Des Moines, Hubble Realty, and HRC NFS 1 LLC. Two is a storm sewer improvement in Gray Station Plat 2 between Mackinac Corporation and HRC NFS 1 LLC. Three is sanitary sewer improvements in Gray Station Plat 2 between Mackinac Corporation, HRC NFS 1 LLC. Four is a storm sewer improvement in Gray Station Plat 2 between Mackinac Corporation and HRC NFS 1 LLC. Five is a sanitary sewer improvements in Gray Station Plat 2 between Mackinac Corporation and HRC NFS 1 LLC. Six, sanitary sewer improvements in Gray Station Plat 1, this time, between Mackinac Corporation and Gray Station 1 LLC. Seven is a paving improvement in Gray Station Plat 2 between Alliance Construction Group LLC and HRC NFS 1 LLC. Eight is a paving improvement in Gray Station Plat 2 between Alliance Construction Group LLC and HRC NFS 1 LLC. C is approving the map and designation of the multi-use recreation trail, and D is approving the Second Amendment to the Urban Renewal Development Agreement with HRC NFS 1 LLC and Hubble Realty Company for the construction of a multifamily housing project at Gray Station. Let's go ahead and open this up. I'll switch the page. Oh, wait a minute, here's C and D. I think we've got it all in, don't we?
Yeah, I think
All right.
you read it, but I have.
Is anybody here that would like to speak to this item? Seeing none? Joe?
I just have a question about C. In the way the diagram, it looks like the the recreational trail just stops. Is it stopping at a certain location where there's like a station, like a bike station, a docking station for something? Because it just like dies in the middle. Why wouldn't we connect it to the other trail? Because the last thing I want to do is 10 years and have someone have to put sidewalk in like they didn't do.
Eric Bonenkamp, Hubble Related Company, 6900 West Town Parkway, West Des Moines. You'll see it ends at the corner of generally Southwest 11th and Tuttle Street. The plan is to have the remaining connection to MLK through the Link multifamily project that's going in on the corner. So there is public sidewalk and public trail along there, which is under construction now. What we have in place right now is a temporary asphalt trail to connect you out to Southwest 11th until that multifamily building is complete, which will be this year in 20.
So you will connect it to MLK?
Correct, yes.
Okay, that's all I wondered. Thank you.
With that, I'll move 44A, B. Do I need to move subpart 1 through 8 separately? B 1 through 8, C, and D. This reflects a lot of work, and I know folks are excited to have this piece of this done, so thank you.
Question, I guess, to the manager and to our planners. We've sort of okayed the project. Are we going to see for use on this plat in this area, are we going to see the plans for the development, including any multifamily residential or whatever else it is that's going to happen in there? I see under D, there are housing project there. Is that layout and concept going to be presented?
I'd need some assistance on that one from the developer on D. Is this the second multifamily?
Eric Bonenkamp, again, Hubble Related Company. This is for a piece of ground that'll be future development that's closer down towards the bridge. It's along the pump station. In the original development agreement, it was contemplated that all that ground be dedicated to Hubble with the land swap with the basin that's down there. It would have included a portion of the road that staff has since said that they want to keep until we're ready to develop at that time. And at that time, we'll have to figure out how the access to that pump station works. So it'll be a problem that we'll have to solve in the future.
Not exactly, but it's... Okay, I understand the pump session, but are you going to bring back the development once you finally get it to...
Part of phase 2 or 3?
As a part of the development, Erin Olson Douglas, Director of Economic Development for the City of Des Moines.
Thank you
As a
very much.
part of the development agreement that has previously been approved, each phase of the development will come forward to you as a conceptual development plan for your approval.
Thank you. Appreciate it. To you both.
7 yes, motion carries.
All right, it's 5:37. That completes the hearings. Takes us back to item 29. Item 29 are abatements of public nuisances at the following: 1704 24th Street. B is 211 Leach Avenue. C is 3810 Second Avenue. D is 2917 Second Avenue. E is 1500 Douglas Avenue. F is 5660 Southeast 19th Street. G is 4914 Southwest 8th Street. H is 909 East 28th Street. And I is 1602 Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway. And that would be Councilmember Mandelbaum.
Great. Thank you. I'll be quick on this. You know, as we go through these, I try and ask some questions to figure out what these homes are and how they ended up in the condition where we're having to remove them, and if there are opportunities for how we do this a little bit better. One of the questions I asked is if we had a database, and I understand that we don't fully, but that maybe it's worth actually trying to track this a little bit, maybe even, because there are a handful of these that are on multiple agendas, maybe if we could, going forward, even with just a spreadsheet on some key areas, like, for example, homes that are owned by banks. One of them is on here tonight. And I think that's a category where there's an opportunity to maybe do things a little differently. I was just a month ago at a Habitat dedication for a home that a bank actually donated to Habitat. And one of the things that I was talking about, this one was, I think, owned by Wells Fargo, and they donated it, and they had some representatives there, was figuring out how we actually open a line of communication with the banks, because there are homes that we could maybe get donated to Habitat that would make good revitalization projects if we figure out how to track this a little better, communicate on it, and maybe open those channels with the banks. Another piece that, just out of curiosity on some of these, is understanding if some of them have been rentals in the past, if some of them have been subject to contract sales. And I think you see some of that in what's provided, but I can't always figure that out. And I think it'd be worth knowing, just as a data point, how many of these homes that we have to take down because they've been allowed to deteriorate were at some point rentals, and what is the history there? Were at some point contract sales? Because that type of data allows us to make a case for other policy change in the future. And as we are doing this work, minimally as we go through the projects that come to council, if we could keep track of that, I would be appreciative. I think that would be helpful. And I think it would be informative, and maybe getting a report at some point would be helpful on that. So rather than continuing to just ask the questions every time, I thought I would suggest that going forward. And in particular here, we've got one, I don't know if the bank would be, if it's worth reaching out to the bank to see if, and maybe reaching out to a partner like Habitat to see if they could rehabilitate that property, and see if the bank would work with them on that. So with that, I'm happy to move these items.
Just a clarification, isn't it like a 2-year process before they ever get finished on the public nuisance? I don't know if Sue Ann can maybe.
Well, you have to go through legal proceedings, and it can take a year, a little more, a little less,
Yeah, it usually,
depending.
doesn't the process usually take about 2 years, Sue Ann?
But if a bank
The
owns it.
foreclosure process takes at least 2 years.
Before we
That's
see,
even
ever
before
see
they
this on the
start.
list, it's like 2 years before demo. I don't know if we all
I
knew
was just
that.
going to say, no, but if a bank is owning it, shouldn't they be pretty accountable to it if that's their ownership? I mean, shouldn't we be able to recoup? I don't know.
Well, how do we
They're
get through the
easier.
legal process if the bank owns it?
Mayor, council, when it gets to this point, when it comes to you for approval for legal action, it's usually 60 to 90 days. And then once you approve legal action, then it goes into the legal process, which then can take, depending on the court's docket, up to 18 months.
So it starts here and then it takes 18 months?
Correct.
Okay. I thought it was the other way. Okay, thank you. I need a little clarification.
And for those of you watching on TV, that's Sue Ann Donovan. She works for the city of Des Moines.
You gonna move it, Josh?
Yeah, I moved it.
Seven yes, motion carries.
Okay, that takes us to ordinances. Item 35, submitting Chapter 114 of the Municipal Code regarding traffic regulation changes as follows. Council Communication Number 20-034. A is a proposed parking restriction, East Pleasant View Avenue between South Union Street and Southeast Fifth Street. B is a proposed commercial loading zone at 1150 Polk Boulevard. And C is code modification related to one-way to a two-way conversion of Pennsylvania Avenue from East Locust Street to East Grand Avenue. Anybody here to speak on this ordinance change?
I'm Teresa Miller. I live at 330 East Pleasant View Drive, and my house is one of those affected by this parking. I live in a modest home, My son lives with me, and we have 2 vehicles. If he is not able to park on the only flat section of the street, one of us has to park at the bottom of the hill. And it seems like there should be other ways to address this than having to park at the bottom of the hill and walk up a street where only 5 houses have sidewalks. So I don't know what you want us to do, because he is currently walking with a cane, and I refuse to park at the bottom of the hill. So I don't know, and I'm not good at doing this, so.
Teresa, what's your address?
330 East Pleasant View Drive. I'm right at the top of the hill where it's the one and only flat spot of the street. Oops, I'm sorry.
You're good, you're good.
But it's just a certain, it's like a certain amount of feet from each crest of the hill. It's really so no one gets killed as you come over the top of the hill. So if a car's parked there,
but it's
not
more,
all the way to, it's not the whole street.
But I live at practically the only level spot of the street. And I live on the north side of the street where there is no parking. There is no room for garages on our properties. So we have to either juggle cars or one of us park on the street. And it's safer, in my opinion, safer to park on the flat spot than on the incline. Because when I'm coming up the hills from the west, if there's a car parked and I have to tuck behind it, otherwise I'm going to get hit from the car coming from the east. So I think the flat part of the street is safer to park on.
So do you know what they're recommending? I believe it's the crest of the hills that they're recommending no parking, and I can get out the little blue letter in the map, yeah. Can you do that?
It shows no parking on the flat part of the street.
Well, I know that our traffic engineers went out and
I know, I
looked at
talked to
this.
them when they were measuring it.
And looked at it, and I mean, they wouldn't suggest anything that, I mean, if, it's a safety concern is what
Yeah,
the problem is. We don't want anyone to get seriously injured there. You can understand
Well,
that.
I can understand that, but I can also understand if I have to park down at 314, which is the bottom of the hill.
There's no sidewalks to walk.
Mine is one of 5 sidewalks on the street.
Yeah, there's not very many sidewalks on that street, and I would agree to that.
Is there any chance of, when they are resurfacing the street next year, of widening it a little bit so that we could park on the flat part of the street?
I don't know, we'd have to look at Steve and Jonathan for something like that, but I don't know how we would widen, I don't know if that would be widened up.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be going into taking your yard.
No, take my neighbor's yard.
See, now you wouldn't like me to take your yard, but you want me to take your neighbor's
Well,
yard.
he probably wouldn't mind that.
And he's not the one standing here telling me not to have you park there.
But so, I mean, so are you saying that I can't have, if I have friends over, there's no place for them to park?
They're going to park further away.
And they all walk with canes.
Can I see where the crest of the, where's that? Can I didn't get that. Why do they have that map and I don't have that map?
Is that the notification that was sent out?
More detail on the notification.
Blue letter. I can't tell where the incline is or where it's not.
Yeah, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, Steve Neighbor, City Engineer.
Yeah, no, I know.
The field staff are recommending the no parking restriction at the crest of the hill. So, I mean, what you're talking about is you're at the top of the hill, but it's to cover the crest of the hill. We wouldn't do, you couldn't really just stop it. I mean, it's a sight vision.
But it doesn't go all the way down the hill, does it?
No, it's
Right.
literally just the crest, yeah.
It was.
It is about 400 feet, if I remember correctly. I think it's, so it'd be a few
About
properties.
four houses or so.
Right, at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is really a tough decision, and I don't want you to have to walk, but I don't want anyone to get killed. And these guys are the experts at this.
Yeah, I don't have that data with me. We can check and see, yeah.
I've lived in my house over 30 years, and there have been no accidents on that in that area.
And this went through the traffic committee, didn't it, Steve?
I believe it did, yeah.
I mean, it should have before it came to us.
I can check on the minutes that one.
Doesn't it say it? Can you scroll up, Laura, a little bit? Or the
Usually
other
they
one?
do if it's, this one, I'll have to check on this one, because sometimes if it's a safety issue, then it would.
Joe, what do you think that we pass B and C and look into A a little?
You know, Mr. Mayor, I really just, and I hate to be that, but I'm concerned that if our traffic engineers are concerned about it, I'm concerned that it's, because I know I've had people say that there's people here, and it looks like he's coming up, that says how dangerous it is. So I've had people tell me how dangerous it is.
Have a speed limit sign posted so people don't drive 40 miles an hour on the street?
Yeah, well, that doesn't matter, because they drive 40 miles an hour and their speed limit signs on my street, so. So, I mean, I know that, I mean, I understand her frustration, but I've had people on the other side call and tell me, and I think he's here, and so is his.
Kelly Gay, 3015 South Union. I won't drive Pleasant View at night. Oh, it's the only time I will drive it is at night, because I can see headlights coming back over the hill, so I know to stop before I come anywhere close to the top of it. Now you put winter into it, they're parking on that side of the road. The plow can't do but, one strip on the north side of the road. So now it's even worse trying to even go that way. And at nighttime's the only time we'll go on it. During the day, it's tough. And there's two hills.
It is two hills. It's a tough street. I mean, I've had concerns going up and down that street myself, that you can't see anything once you get to where your house is. I mean, it's very difficult right before you get to that crest of the hill.
And I'm sure there's probably future plans of resurfacing that road at some point. because it's
Yes,
destroyed.
there is.
And of course, the north side of the road that people drive on is the one that's got the most divots in it. Well, it'd be nice if it was wider, but I don't see that being possible.
When we resurface it, people will drive faster. You can bet it.
You put speed humps in.
Yeah, that would be good.
This whole city would be speed humps.
I'm sorry, but I mean, it's too much of a safety concern, and I mean, I mean, they're the experts, and I've got to trust that they went out and did their homework on something like that. I do not want someone to die or get killed, especially now that it's been brought to our attention, and now we would be liable if we didn't do something about it. I'll move 35A, B, and C.
Mayor County, while I chair the Transportation Safety Committee, I don't recall this coming before us. So
Okay.
to answer your question, that doesn't diminish the safety concern, but I don't
Okay.
believe it came before our committee, so.
Thank you.
Just vote no, it's fine.
I'd like to vote no on A. And yes on the rest of it, but he moved them both, all three, so. How are you going to handle that?
The motion is
Right.
Move separately.
Vote on them separately.
It's up to Joe.
Sure, I mean, I can withdraw it, or I can move 35A. Can I say that, or can I withdraw my
Yeah, just-
motion, and then I'll
Revise the motion to.
I'll revise the motion to
each
move
separate.
35A.
Okay.
If we want to revote, we can revote, or,
So what are we,
we're voting to move 35A.
35A.
And I've got continuing concerns about it. We did some, if speeding's the issue, what we did over on East 24th or whatever. I mean, there's other solutions rather than just taking it off. And I respect the situation with these residents here. It sounds like quasi-handicapped, either elderly or with condition. And, we've got to serve all the citizens, and I'm concerned that
What's the
here's
other
some people who've been there for 30 years, and now what?
Well, what's the other solution? Because why was this brought if there's another solution?
Well, what's,
I don't know what-
if there's no history of any accidents here, here's a woman that's lived here 30 years and hasn't seen one. Here's a traffic transportation that says that they hadn't seen it.
Okay.
So I'm the only one that's voting against it, so you.
No, you're fine. It's okay.
Sidewalks on the street.
But.
I would support
I
to
just
put
have-
sidewalks on both sides of the street, too.
Can we just revisit this? Can you make a motion that we will pull it off? And
Just
revisit
vote
it
no if you
again?
want.
That's what I
For
suggested.
sidewalks or whatever?
They're not, it's
And
not.
how wide is
Okay,
this?
now move the other two.
I'll move item 35B and C and waive the second and third reading.
Thank you.
But we didn't get to re-vote on the first one.
Yeah.
I'd already pushed the button.
We already had 6 yes and 1 no.
Right.
But we didn't, but that was
And then-
before
and
he
then-
pulled it.
Yeah.
The first vote was to vote for all of it.
Okay.
So we didn't
Revised.
get to
Yeah, you
vote,
didn't even vote on that.
we did not get to vote on what Mayor County said.
Can we just clear,
Well, you voted on what Mayor County said,
Yes.
but you didn't vote on the one before where Joe was going to go with just everything, right? On A?
No, I was voting off of
Okay.
Joe's,
Right.
Joe's,
yeah, it probably needed to be cleared and then do that vote?
yeah.
Because it was modified?
I didn't put it up there till that.
Okay,
till
go
that
go
last
ahead and
vote.
clear it, and
So, okay.
Reconsider 35A.
I don't care.
You
So-
can,
Well-
yeah, I mean,
All right, did we have full vote on 35? Let's just, before.
no.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so,
I reconsidered it, I moved 35A, and we voted, well,
Some had already.
you can
Okay, can
clear
you
it.
wipe the
We
board?
can vote
Push the
again if
button.
you want, but.
clear the board,
We need
please.
yeah,
clarification.
so
Yeah.
motion on 35A is.
The motion is 35A,
35A.
Clear the board, please.
And the
I
motion
don't know
is-
how, it was
to move it.
There you go.
there, sorry. She had re-entered it, and
Okay, now, 35A. Okay, there you go. Four,
Okay.
three.
4-3.
Okay, now B and C?
I will move item 35B and C and waive the second and third reading.
Does that mean that A's got to come back 2 more times?
Well, yeah, because I
Yeah, the
don't
way
have
the
6
motion is
votes.
set out right now.
Right.
Yeah, they only have 4
I know.
votes anyway.
That's
Just
Yeah.
want to
why I
make
didn't
everybody
move it.
aware of that. We're going to talk about this more and get some more information. Thank you.
Yeah, I would love to have the engineer come up with something different. I would be more than happy to come up with something different, but as of right now, this is the recommendation that the experts gave me, so I got to go with them. That's why they're paid the big bucks.
It's your turn.
Okay, the next item is a council request. This is 35I, is a request from Councilmember Josh Mandelbaum regarding gun violence prevention. Josh?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to take a moment to speak on this issue. We've had a rough start to 2020, where we've had 3 gun homicides in the first few weeks of this year. And this issue has been something we've been talking about for a while. I think everyone on this council knows I'm real interested in addressing gun safety more broadly, but one of the things that I think there is consensus on and that we all want to see is a reduction in the gun violence that we're facing as a community. And I've spent some time trying to look at approaches over the last few months. I've had at least some initial conversations about an approach called Cure Violence with several of you, but also the chief has been gracious enough to spend some time going over this concept. And the idea is that if we intervene and we treat gun violence like a public health issue and approach it from the community side, that gives us another tool to address the gun violence we're facing as a community. And the Cure Violence program has been used in communities across the country. It's considered a best practice. It's one of the things that folks at Everytown USA, the organization that Mayors Against Illegal Guns is a coalition partner of. It's a solution there. And I know the manager is looking at what we need to do to bring this program here, and I'd like us to move forward and consider that as a solution and to take steps to assess what it would take to bring that program to our community. Because we need to look at all the potential tools and everything that we can do to address this issue. And I'm particularly concerned with what we've seen so far this year, and I want us to be proactive about addressing it. So that's all I wanted to raise this for the rest of the council and to move forward and move that, to receive and file these comments and to move that the manager look at assessing what it would take to bring this program to our community.
We have this in a workshop, Scott.
Yes, we can.
I think that would be helpful, because after discussing it with you, I looked it up, and it is a different approach. It sounds like it's been successful, but it's more holistic in a way, taking community people and really reacting earlier, try to prevent it, because we know that we've tried to do the other things by controlling the guns, and that's been kind of preempted by our state, but this might be a way if we could do something, it's more of a long-term solution. So I would be interested in hearing more about it.
And it's the type of thing, for it to be successful, we're going to have to bring in partners. It's not something that we can do just by ourselves. You know, we'd want the county, we'd want to talk with the schools, want to talk with the community foundation, want to talk with the hospitals, a whole host of folks could be a part of this for it to be successful.
Isn't
Well,
community
the
leaders?
citizens and neighborhoods, I mean, we want
Yeah.
everybody involved.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Isn't it community leaders is something that
Yeah.
really, I
So
mean,
it's really
it's more about them being involved and getting into their different communities where they know the people that are having the guns and the people that are using the guns and creating violence. Those are the ones that, you know, it doesn't matter how many dollars we throw at them, but until we have that involvement and that buy-in from community leaders, nothing will work.
Well, and that's part of the idea behind this. You know, we've had conversations with Urban Dreams. I know the chief has, I think, talked with Will Keeps and Bo James about this. I mean, there's interest among community partners in looking at an approach like this.
So during the workshop, will you make sure that we have the community leaders here that are going to be involved and be able to?
On this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great.
And we may want to go out into some of the neighborhoods and
Absolutely.
have discussions. Yep. All right, so we got a motion
Mayor?
to,
There's one comment I've got. I think anything that we can do to cut down on the killings that have taken place in this city, we need to move forward on. I want to tell you, it's deplorable that we have this many so far this year, but I do want to call out our police chief. Last summer, he was able, with his police force, to get, and I hope I even get the figures wrong, you can counteract me, got 70 people off the street and 21 weapons confiscated just by doing good, solid police work. I can't applaud anybody better than our police department and the way that they do that. And by doing so, who knows how many killings they might have prevented by following that step. So, Chief, my hat's off to you and your staff. You guys do a tremendous job. I love the work that you guys do, and I'm going to follow it right to the end. But if we can find other methods that can help you out, then I'm going to be right there for you.
I think that's the biggest goal, is to find something to make it easier on our police department so they don't have to go after 70 guns or whatever they're going after.
Provide some additional tools to solve this problem.
all right, so we have a motion to receive and turn it over to the manager, and let's put it together and put it on a work session.
Move forward.
Be great.
7 yes, motion carries.
All right, takes us to item 36. It's a request to speak from Carrie Carney at 3850 Merle Hay Road regarding the annual report from the Des Moines Citizens Task Force on Sustainability.
I apologize, Carrie, I had to leave a little early.
Yeah, I just saw this.
I was going to say, you don't look like Carrie, it's just...
Slides, yep. Mayor and council and city staff, I'm Brian Campbell. I'm at 1530 45th Street. And there are several of us who are going to speak. Great.
Brian, your address again?
1530 45th Street.
Thank you.
Yeah, so our group has checked in with the council the past couple years to give kind of an annual report. So we want to just talk about some highlights from 2019, things that we've worked on together with the city, and share some of our priorities for 2020. Before I get into those highlights, I'll just give a little bit of background and context. So the Citizen Task Force on Sustainability was formed in 2016 with a mission to really be a point of connection between the city and citizen groups with a specific focus on greenhouse gas reductions. So Plan DSM calls for 28% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2025. Our focus has been to especially make sure there's a commitment to equity in that work, that we're all sharing the benefits of that and benefiting from that transition. And again, to engage citizens in this work. So we've done a whole variety of things over the years. These are pictures from a tour we did of sustainability sites around the city and some community engagement that we did around getting citizen ideas for what we can do around clean energy and the built environment. So there's about a dozen of us here tonight. Almost all of us stayed till the end. And that's just a small portion of the folks who come to our meetings every couple of weeks. So we try to be a place where people who care about sustainability, who have ideas or concerns can come so that we do the kind of citizen engagement that when we can bring an issue to council that we've had good feedback from people. Many of us are also professionals who work in sustainability who bring different expertise. So I'm the director of sustainability at Central College, and we have people who are connected to over 20 community organizations, faith communities, businesses, neighborhood groups, and colleges and universities. So a lot of what we do is also help to leverage all those different partnerships. So we've been able to get grants through some of our organizations and do things that really help to expand the work that the city could do on its own. And we continue to expand those connections and to grow that network. And I want to just say thanks to Alex Hassel, who stepped in and has been helping us over the last several months with that as the city's going through staffing transitions. So another piece of context that we think is important from 2019, there's been some pretty urgent updates to the science of climate change. So the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change issued this report. This is a picture of the cover. That if we're going to stave off the most catastrophic impacts, we need to keep within 1.5 degrees centigrade of warming, and we're nowhere near on track to meet that goal. And so to do that, even what the city's goals have been in the past and other places around the world, we need to move much more rapidly. So that means 45% decrease in emissions by 2030. And the longer we wait, the harder that is, right? So if we'd started on this in 2020, we would have had to decrease by 3% a year, but if we'd started in 2000, but because emissions have still yet to plateau, it's more like 15% a year. So part of what was alarming to lots of people is that this report says we really have about a decade to make a difference. And so that's the time that all of us are active in this work, that all of you are serving on council, and so this is our time to work together on these issues. We also saw in 2019 that there's, this urgency is especially clear to young people who see how this is going to affect the whole of their lives. So I brought 3 busloads of students from Central College to the Capitol in September, and there were I stopped and picked up kids at Central Campus, where my son is in 8th grade, and there were hundreds of youth from Des Moines Public Schools and around the metro at the Capitol. And that was just one of several climate strikes that they were organizing throughout the year and around the state. And part of what we've seen is that those students have been pushing cities around the world, including in Iowa, to move more quickly. So the picture there on the right is in Iowa City, where they already had a climate plan in place, but because of pressure from especially young people and students, they moved that even more quickly. So they looked at their previous plan and tried to figure out how they could accelerate that action. So we're certainly at a point where we need to be able to respond to that kind of pressure, and we should be. And the other thing we know is that in the last year, a lot of our state was underwater for a significant amount of time. That this was $1.6 billion in damage, the largest natural disaster in the history of our state. And like I said, that was in other parts of the state primarily, but we've seen flooding here for sure that we know is, forcing us to look at these issues. So last January, we were in the same room, and I was part of the committee. Our task force is one of 5 committees in responding to the floods from summer of 2018. And we were active in that process of recommendations around green infrastructure, how to do outreach to citizens, to do what they can at the residential level to respond to the risk of flooding. So we were active in that work. That was one of the things that we spent a lot of time on in 2019. We did a lot of outreach. So members of our task force go to all sorts of community events and have a table and give out information, get citizen input on what we can be doing. One of the big accomplishments that we did in 2019 was to finish an update of the greenhouse gas inventory. So this was looking at all of our emissions from the community and to try to figure out what are the sources of those, how can we be strategic about responding. So the biggest source of emissions there, the 35%, is from commercial buildings. And so that became then a key focus, and lots of you, Josh Mandelbaum and Bill Gray, helped to work with the Energize Des Moines and work on the water and energy benchmarking ordinance. Our group did a lot of work to gather signatures, to show citizen support for this, to engage with the committee meetings and the work to get that ordinance passed. And we're really excited that we took that step. We know that's the biggest piece of our emissions, and so it's great to work with you on that process. We also worked on the zoning code. So members of our task force were part of those committees, came to hearings and spoke about zoning. So residential buildings are another big piece of what that inventory identified that we need to focus on, and so we've been engaged in thinking about what we can do at the residential level. We were excited to see the partnership with Trees Forever. We gave a lot of input on the urban forestry master plan and trying to look at that. So that's another area that we can be making an impact on climate change. We had presentations about that and with other community partners. This is at Green Drinks, which is a monthly event where people in the community who care about sustainability come and share ideas. And we did a lot of work, again, related to flooding to support the metro area's rain campaign. Again, working to encourage people to participate in the rebate programs and do what they can to respond to flooding. So lots of things that we've worked on, lots of good partnerships, but there's a lot more to do. And Carolyn and others will talk about that.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Carolyn Eulen-Hake-Walker. I live at 4111 Ingersoll Avenue. I've been on the task force for sustainability since it started in October of 2015 when we started meeting right before the Paris Climate Agreements. We decided this was a really important thing that we needed to do in our city. And we have been meeting every 2 weeks for the last almost 4.5 years. I have to say that our outreach is really getting better in the community. We've increased in the last 8, 9, 10 months, 10 more members that are coming, and it takes quite a commitment to come every 2 weeks. Not everybody comes every 2 weeks, but we do have a good showing. Plus, we really appreciate the liaison with the city staff also coming. If we look at also, we have a lot of new groups that have partnered with us, and we've done community outreach, like Brian said, as far as having booths at the Vegan Fest, the Earth Day at Colby Park. We've done presentations at Sierra Club, the Environmental Roundtable of MPO. We've done presentations at Green Drinks. We've done workshops, some of our leaders in Dubuque at the Growing Sustainability Communities Conference every year. We've done some podcast interviews with Yale Climate Connections. And we're just really see how important it is to get our community involved. So we're on an entrance ramp, and we are seeing really progress with our community, with climate action, with the big building benchmarking ordinance that passed, with our flood reports and the green and gray infrastructure that's happening in our public works. We really want to thank the city for all that support. And the other thing, too, is thanking Scott Sanders and the city staff, other city staff, for seeing how important and that we hire a real staff person to deal with the interconnection of sustainability in all of our city departments. So it's really a big thank you to all of you for your support, and we want to continue on 2020 with Dan.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dan Warfel. I live at 2336 Farwell Road, Fairmont Park. I want to talk a little bit about the task force priority in 2020. So the Des Moines Climate Action Plan is something that the task force has been working towards since I joined in 2017. And it seems like we've made some headway with the University of Northern Iowa and that partnership with the city and the task force in developing that plan. And so we're going to be working with them in the future in addition to the city, but we want to focus on producing a plan that considers prevention, mitigation, and adaptation, and one that considers it through the lens of social equity and inclusion. So we want to make something that's thorough and it represents a climate action plan for the capital city of Iowa. We're also looking forward to further engaging the community. We want to keep reaching out and expanding our network. I talk often to the folks on the task force about our networking power. When I first came to the task force, I was really impressed by the kind of tapestry of organizations that are represented and people that are represented and the people that they know. And so it's really a big network, but we've got work to do to keep reaching out to folks and find the right folks that can help us further our work. We're also serving as a model and as a resource for neighboring communities. So something interesting that's popped up in the last year and a half or so is that we've had folks from Indianola, Pleasant Hill, and Urbandale reach out to us about our task force model, how we got started, how they could work on their own. And we've also been approached recently, at least with interest, by folks from Johnston, Windsor Heights, and Ames. So we've got something going here that people want to duplicate, and we're pretty proud of that, and we hope that we can serve as a good model to other places. Not only that, but some of our task force members have been reaching out to folks across the state, different sustainability managers in different cities, and we've kind of acted as a catalyst for city government partnerships across the state. So we're looking forward to providing that capacity to other folks as well.
Thanks, Dan.
So our third priority is to pursue opportunities within clean energy and transportation. You all saw the pie chart up there. We focused a little bit on commercial energy last year with the benchmarking ordinance, but it's everybody's responsibility. That's obviously that's one piece of the chart. There's residential, there's transportation, which is also a big portion. So we want to make sure that we're all looking at ways to reduce that as a whole. So we're always looking for ways to promote alternative transportation and renewable energy and chip away at all of those slices of the greenhouse gas inventory to work towards the city's goals. Work with the sustainability program manager. So one of the things I noticed in perusing the description of that position is that the task force is specifically called out, and we're really excited about that. We think that it's only going to strengthen the partnership between the city and the task force and be better for the sustainability efforts altogether. And we're looking forward to presenting our vision of a more sustainable Des Moines and collaborate on achieving goals for the community with that person who's hired. And once again, thank you for making sustainability a priority by making that position full-time and focused on sustainability. And finally, and this I can't emphasize enough, we're a resource to the folks on city council. And so, like I said, our networking powers are far and wide, and whatever we can do to help you answer questions that you have about sustainability, please call on us, because we're here for the city and for the community and for your knowledge as well. With that, I'd like to open it up to any discussion or questions you might have at the moment.
Any questions, anybody? Comments? I want to thank all of you. I'll just start out by saying I appreciate all your work. This is important work, not only for us in laying out immediate plans, but it's carrying it on into the future to our kids and our grandkids, because that's who's really going to be affected by any actions or non-actions that are taken at all levels of government. We would hope that we get utmost help from those in Washington, but certainly up underneath the Capitol domes and working with the county and the city together with citizens, neighbors, and businesses, we can make a difference. But at any rate, anybody have any comments?
I just want to thank you for the work. I mean, everything you've brought forward is very informative, and it really makes you want to even do more, because it is real. I think still people, and there's little things that we can try to get people to do one step at a time. And with your help, maybe through the neighborhood associations and stuff, really start building that as part of our conversation. I don't know how many you go to, but I think that every little bit that each one of us does help.
It's us, yeah.
And the new staff position, what would be the expectations of when that new person would be on board, roughly?
So it's advertised.
It's advertised now?
Last week.
Yeah.
And so it continues to be advertised.
Would that be in
About
your
2
office?
months, probably about 8 weeks would be an expectation.
Is that in your office, the city manager's office?
It through the facilities, which is in the city manager's office.
So I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you all for the work that you do and the dedication and commitment. This is, I think, particularly the focus on climate change, it is the challenge of our time, and it's not the type of thing that we solve without everyone coming together and pushing it, and we absolutely have a very real and significant part to play as a city, and we're looking at those things. The mayor has been a great leader on these issues, and we are actively looking at the steps that we can take. I'm proud of the work we did with Councilmember Gray on the task force and the benchmarking ordinance, but we recognize that is only a piece. You know, we've taken steps. We've got, I don't know that they're here yet, but the first 4 electric vehicles, I think, have at this point been ordered for the city's vehicle fleet. You know, we had some Priuses that we've used previously, and those things have proven out, I think, better than what was advertised when the mayor advocated for them years ago, and I think the electric vehicles are going to be just the same. And so I look forward to us taking steps, both big and small. You know, they're little things that we can do, and we should be looking to take advantage, for example, to add parking infrastructure, both when we look at our CIP budget from a parking perspective, but also the opportunity that exists right now with the Volkswagen settlement. And if we lead on that, not only is it good for the environment, but it's a competitive edge for the city of Des Moines, that our businesses, our hotels will enjoy the advantage of actually having the charging infrastructure nearby. That's a good thing for the city, and it's a way that our leadership can benefit us. And I look forward to continuing to push the envelope, particularly on the clean energy side, and appreciate everything that you do to share that message and build support for meaningful action.
Thank you, Councilman. If I could just take a moment to recognize the folks that are on the task force here. If you're on the task force, could you raise your hand? All right, so we got a couple that stuck it out. Thank you, guys. I just want to get a round of applause for everybody that helps out here. Thank you for having us this evening. We look forward to talking to you soon.
Mr. Bill Cox, who's on our sustainability task force, also the physics teacher to Bill Gray, reminded me that there's a great opportunity to stand up and be counted when it comes to climate change, and that's this coming Saturday, February 1st. We're having a climate crisis parade. 68 organizations have signed on, including colleges, high schools, churches, environmental groups, civic groups, and we're expecting close to 1,000 people or more to be in the parade. It's going to start out here at 4th and Locust by Coles Commons at noon. It'll probably be over in an hour, hour and a half, so come out and stand up for our climate change and for challenging our media to educate our public on this more and more and more. So hope to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn. I think we need a motion to receive and file the comments and
So moved.
move them to the city manager and hopefully give some direction to our new sustainability director.
Seven yes, motion carries.
We have one more speaker, Spencer Burton, who is 4324 Forest Avenue, who would, if he's still here, Spencer? You here?
Mayor, he left earlier, so.
All right. We did have already a mention of the support for the sustainability director, and everybody looking forward to that. And Mr. Manager, would you quickly just fill in on the detail? We'll give you like 30 seconds or a minute and tell us how that process is going and when you expect it to be completed.
Yeah, so it's already been advertised. You're talking about the position? Yeah, we
Right.
have a first-time job position posted for sustainability director or manager, and they will work very closely with our facilities department, Jim Hoff and his group, but they will also obviously work with the task force and other agencies that are involved in sustainability, look into our STAR program as well. I've got a whole list of objectives. Working with UNI will be pretty important. They've presented an option for us where the staff person can work closely with UNI on a City of Des Moines climate action plan. So that's a great opportunity to garner some other resources outside the city to help us get a plan put together, which would be probably about a 2-year process as we go through that entirely. Again, the position would be expected to be on board within 2 months.
So hopefully to look at buildings, ones existing and retrofits and sustainability on those, moving to the highest level of LEED Platinum or better for new buildings, and purchasing vehicles.
Potential policies for the community. There's all kinds of great examples out there with other climate action plans addressing the whole spectrum.
And I think for everybody that's here that is concerned about this, we had Laura Graham that worked on a lot of these issues, but she wasn't 100% committed to this. She had a lot of other responsibilities. It's our understanding and that this is going to be a full-time job and a person dedicated in every department to move forward on our sustainability efforts across the organization. So, Scott, thank you for moving this forward. So, and we'll thank Spencer for putting it on the agenda so we could talk about it. Unless anybody has any further items, we appreciate everyone coming this evening, but we have reached the end of our agenda. Am I correct in that, Madam Clerk? Yeah? All right, so thank you all. This meeting's adjourned.